Learning a foreign language is a very long process, so the more help you can get, the better. Today I'm going to be talking about learning French, and specifically about learning French as an adult. Just to give you a little bit of context, my name's Patrick. I've been living in France since 2010, been here with my family for 15 years. In that time I've moved around various places in France, and since 2018 we've been in Montpellier. I have 2 degrees from French universities, a degree in literature, and I also have a master's in artistic creation and media analysis. And I can speak French. I've done a huge amount of reading in French, I've written a couple of novels in French, so my standard of French is pretty high. But there's some advice I wish I'd been given when I started learning French. So today I'm going to give you 3 tips that's going to make it so much easier for you to learn French as an adult. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to give you a bonus tip that's probably worth more than all the other 3 combined. So I'm at my home in Montpellier in the south of France. I'm going to take the tram into town, take a walk, and give you some advice which hopefully is going to save you a huge amount of time and pain. Let's go! So we just got off the tramway at Courhoum. Courhoum is the massive concert hall in the middle of Montpellier. And now we're walking down the Esplanade towards the Place de la Comédie. But without any further ado, here's the first of the 3 amazing tips I'm going to give you to make your life infinitely easier as a French learning adult. Tip 1. Make sure you understand basic grammar in your own language before you try to understand the grammar of another. This is criminally overlooked in language learning, and I'm speaking specifically to Anglophones here, people who speak English as a first language. When you start to learn another language, especially if you're of a certain age, I'm 51, so I grew up in the UK, in North Wales under the Thatcher government in the 80s, and English grammar was effectively deleted from the national syllabus. So I went through, most of my adult life really not having any kind of understanding of English grammar at all. And this was highlighted really quickly when I started learning French, and I didn't really have a solid grasp of grammatical terms and so forth. Many people my age suffer from the same sort of problems. So to illustrate what I'm talking about, I'm going to put a basic sentence in English up on the screen. And what I want you to do is pause the video, identify the grammatical elements of the sentence, and see whether or not you can do it easily. Just to give you a hint, there's a definite article, an indefinite article, 2 adjectives, 2 nouns, and a verb. Ready? Here it is. How'd you get on? Hope you didn't cheat. Here's the answer. So my point is that if you couldn't do that, or if you had to really think about that, you couldn't do it automatically, or if you had to look it up on the internet, then before you try to understand grammar in another language, you should probably make sure that you understand basic grammar in your own, probably English. This will save you a huge amount of time and pain when you're sitting in a classroom or whatever, and someone says to you, where's the adjective in this sentence? In a French sentence, and you have absolutely no idea. You'll have a much better idea if you're able to do that in English. So anyway, there's tip number 1, and I promise you it's a good one. Make sure you understand basic grammar in English before you try to understand it in French. So this is the Place de la Comédie, which is the centre of town. It's actually a Saturday when I'm filming this, hence the amount of people. Actually, Montpellier is kind of always busy, but it becomes definitely a lot more so at the weekend, and certainly during the summer months. It's absolutely heaving for a reason. It's a really great place to live. Anyway, tip number 2. don't try to consume French adult media until you're a lot more advanced. This is such a common error in French learning. When you start to learn French, your teacher or teachers will almost certainly say to you, start reading in French, start watching French TV, start listening to the radio, to familiarize yourself with spoken and written French. Now, it's not bad advice. French pronunciation is notoriously difficult. People learn languages in two ways, children or adults, it makes absolutely no difference. The first is learning, hence the grammatical tip. That's the bit where you sit in a classroom and work out bits on a piece of paper and listen to a teacher and so forth. And the second is exposure. And in language learning, you often hear this called immersion. So while it's absolutely amazing advice to read French and to watch French in films and on TV, basically the media you choose should be preschool. Now, when you're learning as an adult, the media instinct when you want to familiarize yourself with the language is to start watching adult movies and reading adult books. And obviously I've seen this like many times. The frustration you will get from doing this is just absolutely enormous, and it can really damage your motivation. Like, you need to understand that when you're learning French, when you first start out, you have a comprehension age of a young child. So do things like watch Dora the Explorer, which was made for language learning. It's called Dora l'Exploratrice in French. And you can also find episodes of Peppa Pig in French on YouTube, which does exactly the same thing. It familiarizes yourself with very basic language. And I promise you, even when you're starting out, even cartoons that were made for very young children will be difficult to understand. So that's where you have to start. Also, when you're looking for books, really go for books that are made for babies. Bear in mind that you probably, when you're starting out, you don't know the words for colours, the days of the week, for numbers and so forth. I have actually taught French to people who come from countries who have different alphabets, for example, from Arabic-speaking countries, from countries where people speak Persian. And it's when you're in that kind of situation that you realise that it doesn't matter how old you are, if you don't know the word for red, you don't know the word for red. And that's something that you're going to have to learn. So that is tip number 2. Expose yourself to French media, but expose yourself to French media that's made for children. Tip number 3. You need to start learning about the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, or the CEFR in English. In French, it's called Le Cadre Européen Commun de Référence pour les Langues. Basically, it's the official framework for everyone who learns French as a foreign language. In French, it's called FLE, Français Langue Étrangère. It means that if you advance in an official way with French as an area of study, these are the levels by which you will be judged. So there are 6 levels: A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail about what they are and what they mean, but obviously A1 is very basic, as in, hello, my name is Patrick, I live in Montpellier, I am 51 years old, and so forth. Up to C2, which is effectively preparation for university studies. You should pretty much understand everything that's said to you and everything you read. The reason that this is important is because a lot of people, when they start learning French, they don't really have any idea how to do it. And you can go to any online bookstore, or if you come to France, you can go into any bookshop and you can buy school books, like academic books, for each of these levels. So for example, you can buy an A1 textbook, which will include loads of exercises, and it will probably come with a CD or with sound files that you can listen to, and that is how you advance. So you do A1, then A2, then B1, and so forth, and that's how you advance in a very technical sense. If you ever sort of come to France with the intention of working or studying, you'll be asked to prove these levels. You will actually have to sit exams. So you can come to France and you can take a B1 exam, for example. You can pay to do it in Paris. That's something you might want to do. And then you'll have a bit of paper that says that you are proficient in French to a B1 standard. So the sooner you familiarize yourself with that, the sooner there'll be some structure to your learning. And I would definitely advise you to do that. And that is tip number 3. And now for the amazing bonus tip that I promised I would give you if you stuck around to the end. This, as I said, is probably one of the most important aspects of learning any language, especially as an adult. And that is that you need to believe that you can do it. There is a famous narrative around language learning as an adult that says that not only is it more difficult than learning it as a child, I'm sure you've all heard the expression that children soak up languages like sponges, but it is often considered, in fact, to be impossible for adults to become very proficient at foreign languages. Now, I've been in France for a long time, and I have 2 degrees from French universities. I've read a huge amount in French. I've got a C2 level proficiency. I've written 2 novels in French. I'm living proof that the idea that adults can't learn languages is a lie. I'm going to leave a link to a study in the description of this video, which was done by MIT and Harvard researchers on a very large set of English learners. And the findings were that not only are adults capable of reaching native-like proficiency in a foreign language, but often they can do it a lot better than children for various reasons. I won't go into the details of the report, it's pretty extensive, but I'll leave the links in the description, as I said, down below. But that is my 4th and amazing bonus tip, is that no matter how hard it gets, no matter how much you want to believe that you can't do it, no matter how much people tell you that you can't do it because you're an adult, and believe me, I've heard it all, it is not true. You really can succeed, and I really hope that the tips I'm giving you today will help you in that journey. So there you go. Some tips to help you learn French as an adult. I really hope you found that useful, and many thanks for watching this far. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, consider subscribing, and whether you do or not, many thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.